kinda beautiful. Keep your head up, it don't matter. Don't be discouraged, it don't matter. Let the world know that it don't matter. Be your own kinda beautiful. Curvy is so beautiful, plus size is so wonderful. Being thick has benefits, I'm not your ordinary cheek. I've got a lot of love to share with low, short, and nappy hair. Take your time to let you know I'm my own kind of beautiful. So think it's a sexy girl. Don't you be ashamed. No, 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 no. Yeah. Be your own kind of beautiful. You're so beautiful. If the plus size, it don't matter. If you got curves, it don't matter. Maybe a little thick, it don't matter. Be your own kind of beautiful. Keep your head up, it don't matter. Don't be discouraged, it don't matter. Let the world know that it don't matter. Be your own kind of beautiful. Curvy is so beautiful, plus size is so wonderful. Being thick has benefits, I'm not your ordinary cheek. I've got a lot of love to share with low, short, and nappy hair. Take your time to let you know I'm my own kind of beautiful. So think it's a sexy girl. Don't you be ashamed. No, 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 no. Yeah. Be your own kind of beautiful. You're so beautiful.
Hey everybody, here we are. Welcome to Jamila J Girl Talk right here on Choice TV. If you're watching us from YouTube, please like and share. It's been a while, but we're back. I have been busy. Life is just life, right? So we're just doing the best we can. And I'm so glad to be back on the Super Bowl Sunday. I didn't even know it was Super Bowl Sunday, but it's Super Bowl Sunday. And we are back. And I have a very, very special guest. He was here before. When were you here before, Shema?
I think it was like maybe like a month ago, right?
Yeah, about a month ago. We talked about my favorite topic is religion and, the different types of religion, Christianity, but more of a Negro Black perspective. But we're here really to talk about, okay, help me with your name, Shema'yah.
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 Is that Shema'yah? Shema'yah. Yay. Beyk, right?
Shema'yah.
Shema'yah.
Yeah, Shema'yah. The hyphen just is separated.
Oh, Shema'yah. Okay, Beyk. Okay. I was thinking, you know how I can't remember. I said, it's like Shamar, but it was with the
okay.
A.
Yeah.
Shema'yah. That's a nice name. Does
you.
that have a meaning?
Yeah, it means Jah has heard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Or Yah has heard.
Yah has heard. And you are an author, and your books, you have a series, The Ritual. We're going to talk about that. But something happened to you in 1989 that kind of changed your life. You want to talk about it? It kind of got you on this path of
you mean
esoteric.
the UFO incident?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. A cousin of mine back in Jersey, not too far from McGuire Air Force Base, we're coming home one evening, and my cousin was like, "The star is moving." I said, "Well, stars don't move." He's like, "Well, this one moves." And I said, "Well, if you're actually moving, move to the center of the street, just to give you a visual. You know how stars are, how high they are in the sky. this object moved to the center of the street. And then my cousin said, I told you. Then I said, well, if you can hear us, obviously it could. I said, well, unless you come to where we are. And it started floating, still at the height of the stars. And it got to the middle of the street and got to about the height of where trees are, maybe a 5-story building, maybe a little bit higher than that, maybe a 10-story building, that height. But it was still in a star form. And my cousin said, I think you better get on the side on the grass because we were standing in the street. I said, like, that's gonna make a difference. And when I said that, it was like a 4th of July sparkler. So we both did like the shield in our eyes. And then once we felt like the energy of the heat dissipate, it was like a triangular shaped piece of glass. I don't know if it was glass, but from my perspective, it was like glass, like had 6 lights, yellow lights on the bottom. Whatever was inside of it, once they figured that we had a good look at it, the sky opened up and then it went inside without making any sound, and the sky closed back on it. Then my cousin was like, we got to tell people. I said, who we going to tell? Nobody going to believe this story. But now, it's been some time, so it doesn't matter if we tell the story or not. But that was our experience with the unidentified flying object.
How did that change your perspective on life?
I always knew that we weren't alone, but that actual real life demonstration actually kind of completed things.
Wow. And that was 1989 or 98? It was
98.
98. So that was, wow. How old were you then?
I don't know. I guess what do you think? My 20s? I'm asking you what you think. Probably in my 20s, yeah.
20s, wow. Did that make you want to do more research on UFO and learn more about it?
It did. Another the unseen world that really opened up the door for that. There had to be more than the physical world.
Wow. So with that being said, that was really fascinating to me, and it's on your website with other things that are on your website. Very interesting. So where were you born and where do you live now?
I'm in Philly. I was born in Trenton, New Jersey.
Okay. And so you have a series of books, and it's called The Ritual. Can you tell us a little bit about how many books do you have in this series, and then tell us about each individual book, a little synopsis, a little brief overview of each book. Excuse me.
Sure. The first is called, I have a 4-book series, working on the 5th book now. That last book is called The Order of the Boneless. But the first book is called How to Capture a Soul. That's the first book. The second book
is all under The Ritual, right?
Yeah, a ritual book series. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So the first one is what now?
How to Capture a Soul.
Okay, How to Capture a Soul.
Yes, the second book, the second book is Surviving the Apocalypse.
Okay.
Yeah, the third one is Soul Hunter's Prayer.
Okay.
And the 4th one is Dream Wars and Age Reversal.
Okay. And the 5th one you're working on now, do you have a title?
Yeah, The Order of the Boneless.
The Order of the Boneless. So when did you start the very first book? What year was that?
Maybe 2005, 2006.
Wow. So that's been maybe what? Yeah, almost 15, 17 years.
2 years.
20 years. Wow. So one thing I did notice about your books is it's biblical. It's factual, biblical. You incorporate, I know you talked about the Garden of Eden, but then you go back into the Egyptian names and then the biblical Christian names. I mean, it's loaded, it's loaded with lots of good information. And I'm just thinking, how does he know all this information? So let's start with the first book. Tell us kind of how you started, even the series, and then how did you incorporate the Bible and And then you talk about Egyptology, and it's like, I mean, it's loaded.
Okay, I definitely can answer that. But I have a question for you. Did you read the book or listen to the audio?
The audio. Mhm.
Audio. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The how I came across the idea was the fact that living in the regular world, like everyone else goes to work, take care of kids, go to school, etc., and then understanding that there is an unseen realm that, especially our people of our melanin perspective, have been told to stay away from. So I was trying to see how I can relay a story that pertains to our people and other people as well, but our people specifically for this
Yeah.
conversation,
Hmm.
and write it in such a way that was entertaining but also enlightening. So I decided to come up with a character named Paradise. Her name is Isabella Rosemary Montoyer, and her grandmother was a spiritualist, but her mother was into the church. So she's put in the middle of, do I learn the ancient science of our people to help not only protect ourselves but our community and our people as well, or do I just maintain and just wait and hope and believe what her mother was telling her? You don't need that. That's bad. That's evil. That's the devil. That's Satan. You're going to hell. So she's put in a situation. So what I did, I put in the book. Paradise kind of takes on a lot. Um, Basically, I wrote it in such a way that things that each individual has experienced on their own, but didn't have an individual to share it with, but also the burden that's placed upon her is knowing that she needed spiritual work when physical work couldn't do it. And
Hmm.
but she made a vow to her mother, who had some mental issues, that she would never use the spiritual side or the ancestors to assist her. But then it comes a point in time where she's put in a position where she's forced to turn to the science of our foreparents to help her out of her situation.
What is the dichotomy between the spiritual side and the religious side? Somebody's on here. I don't know who this is. Um, Somebody popped in the
Okay.
green room. I don't know who this is. Um, I don't know who it is. I'm not gonna let them in.
Are they able to
Okay.
listen? Or?
Yeah, they can listen in. I don't know who this is. I just sent it. I sent the link to you to your two emails. And
Okay, and I
anyway,
sent one to a friend of mine.
you want to let me? You want me to let them in?
Sure. I don't know who it
The
is, but I
link.
sent it to him. Sure. I don't know who it is, but I sent it to one of my some of my lodge brothers, and I sent it to my friend and coworker.
Oh, okay, okay. There's two
I didn't know,
people.
was that supposed to be for the public or just for me and you?
No, that was just for me and you.
Oh, I apologize. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
So let me ask
It's
you a
like,
question. Let
wait
me
a minute.
ask you a
Is
question.
is, is that a spirit coming?
Oh, gee, funny.
It's like
He don't have to
there's
wait in the
two
green.
spirits. Like,
If it was, he had to wait in the green room. We would have just came in.
okay, that's it's all good. Okay,
Yes, I apologize. I wasn't sure about the protocol
no
with regards to
worries,
that.
no worries. Okay, but go ahead. We talk about the spiritual and then the religious perspective.
Well, how many hundreds of religions are there? My personal perspective is that depending on what family you were brought up in and what country of origin is going to determine, most likely, until you get to an age where you can decide for yourself, you're going to be a religion of whatever your people are. So if we were in Japan, most likely we'd be Shinto or Buddhist.
Hmm.
If we were, let's see, if we were in uh, like the Yazidis, we might be followers of Malak Tus. So it depends on where, in my opinion, they're all got different opinions. Depending on where we are in the world and region of the world, that's most likely the religion that we're going to be a part of, associated with. And not until you get a particular maturity, then you start making some decisions upon your own understanding or the guidance of the Great Spirit.
But you talked about the character in the first book. Her grandmother was spiritual, and her mother was religious.
Hmm.
So I wanted you to speak upon. You talked about religious. What about the spiritual perspective of the grandmother in the book?
Well, the grandmother used a science that, how can I put it, that's been in our lineage, in our DNA for thousands, if not millions of years. but it's not until this recent time. Not everyone um, does anything with it, because no matter what section of humanity that you're a part of, you have your shamans, your prophets, and your prophetess. The opposite side that what people would consider would be sorcerers, wizards, and witches. So there's a
Mhm.
dichotomy there. I guess forces. Some people say white magic, black magic, or in the middle, gray. But the grandmother was not opposed. Madame Montoya was not opposed to using the creator and the creator's natural forces or nature's forces to defend herself or her family. So that's the difference. And I think with religion, there's certain dogmas or certain rules that you have to stay within the confines. If you don't, then you either end up going to hell or some other type of purgatory as a result of going against the edict of their particular religion.
I think that's what we were touching on before we came live. The dichotomy of religion and the rules and regulations of religion. All right, so that's the first book. Let's go on to the second book in the series of The Ritual.
Yeah, essentially the whole series is about, once again, about Paradise. Her mission is to gather or to be a part or participant of a group of spiritual men and women that have come together to decided that this is the way that they can defend their people, or our people, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So right in the first book, essentially, you have a wayward soul, so to speak, who does not want to have anything to do, pardon me, with magic. But as the second book comes on, she realizes that this is part of her mission, why she returned to Earth. So that's where the how the apocalypse comes in. The apocalypse
Mm.
means the turning point. So it means to turn from one position of thought or reality to another. And how the
So
yeah, uh-huh.
go ahead. You know what, again, was fascinating to me is you use scripture from the Bible. You use, the Garden of Eden. There's another name you use. I think it's mainly probably from the Egyptian or Ethiopian name of it, but it is so impacted with information and knowledge. And it's like, man, I need to have the Bible in front of me. I need to have, my
Yeah.
Google in front of me to Google this information. How do you know all this and
Well,
be able to incorporate it into a story,
well,
into a
there's people,
novel?
whether it's people like you, I have other associates, jegnas or mentors, and you start taking puzzle pieces. So for me, it's not as challenging. And also the way that my mind thinks, I've been doing it for quite some time now. I'm almost just really like a scribe dictating in my mind what the characters want to be placed out into this reality world. So I do have an advantage there. So I've been writing with these characters for a while, almost like the muse, Muse, where they begin to almost, I don't want to say automatic writing, because we're talking spiritual stuff now, because that's frightening certain
Mhm.
people. But I'm not saying that an automatic write, but I do have the ability to be quiet and still enough to hear and to see in my mind how things should be laid out.
Did you study layers of the Bible? You talk about the book of Enoch. You talk about, the hidden books of the Bible. Did you, first of all, just study biblical topics? I mean, is that how you got the knowledge, or is the knowledge just coming to you as a muse?
A combination of both. Just to rewind a little bit, part of my background, my mother was a Messianic Jew, so we kept the Sabbath, the Passover, etc. So I was familiar with the Torah and the Tanakh, etc. So that helped out
Mm,
a lot. Had a lot of Hebrew Israelites, still do Hebrew Israelite people. They talked about the Apocrypha and things of that nature.
okay.
So I was also used to having religious conversations. I have friends and
Mhm.
associates who are part of the Hare Krishna movement, and the Bhagavad Gita was introduced to that. So, but as
Okay.
far as with the Bible and the layers of things and missing books, my mother introduced me to Strong's Bible Concordance. So it's a dictionary of the Hebrew and Greek words. So most people are familiar with the King James Version. And as a
Right.
result, if there was a certain word that I was not familiar with, she showed me the concordance, is that I can look and see what the actual word in Hebrew or Aramaic would be. So that kind of led me on the
Okay.
path as well. So that helped me out
Yeah.
from a younger age.
Yeah, because it's a whole nother level.
Yeah, it's like
You
puzzle
know,
pieces.
it's a whole nother level, and it's very you know, I'm just really starting to really study the Bible and um from a different perspective, from you know, the Hebrew uh perspective as you know, Negroes, and we're coming from Negro land, and just I'm just really learning that. And I think when I was listening to, you know, your books, it's like, man, he knows a lot of information. He has really studied and you know, learned a lot. And it's amazing how you take that information and transform it into a story. And it's like, is this a real place? You talk about the Garden of Eden, and then you use the other name for it. It's like, okay, is this real or is this fiction? But it's amazing how you're able to do that.
I appreciate that. The city of Nippur in modern day Iraq was also considered Eden, and depending
Mhm.
on what how can I say it? Even in West Africa, they said certain parts of Nigeria may have been an Eden at one time. So depending on what time frame we're speaking of, but we're talking about this within the last 10,000 years, according to Christian chronology. We're looking at maybe Nippur, the city of Nippur in Iraq, being
The
part
Garden
of
of Eden.
the Garden of Eden. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're writing, you're, I don't want to say channeling. How would you describe the process? I know you said it was like a muse. Do you hear someone just kind of,
It's
you
not.
know,
It's
the
not like.
character speaking to you?
Yeah, it's not. It's not like I'm hearing Jamila. You need to write this. It's not like that. It's just like when
The
I could.
characters?
Yeah, the character is more like how you and I are talking, and the board that's behind you. I may see something, and they say, "Oh, that'd be interesting." I'm not from where I am. I can't really tell what's on your wall, but the one behind your right ear looks like a could be a crystal. So I'll make a mental notation to make sure that I mention about crystal, and it might end up
Mm.
going to a crystal skull. Then I might literally have to go open up a book and read up on the Mitchell Hedges
Okay.
crystal skull. So to lead that way, like dominoes or
Yeah.
onion skin, like skins of onion layers. You pull one back and pull another layer back.
But what I do, excuse me, what I do like about your writing is you really explain, um, I guess, the terminology and things that people may not be familiar with, the different terminology for Garden of Eden. Like you said, it's in modern day Iraq or whatever, but you do explain a lot, and I can appreciate that because I think this is so, I don't want to say common, but it's, you know, it's like everyday knowledge for you. You grew up with this. So it's probably, you know, it comes easy for you, but other people is like, wow, this is fascinating. Let me, you know,
Oh,
research
okay.
this and make sure I really understand what he's saying with this. So I appreciate how you do explain and give
Oh, thank
background
you.
information. Okay, let's go on to the third book.
The third book is called Soul Hunter's Prayer, and this is where Paradise returns to New Orleans to be initiated because her grandmother is in the spirit world. She passed away from a broken heart, and
Mm,
her grandmother essentially said, "I could do more for you in the spirit world than I could do for you in the physical world." And so she's meeting up and also the enemies of our people in the book, so to speak, would be elements in the government and in the fictional story, as well as a breakaway society. So it's a combination. In addition to spiritual world, there's a physical aspect as well that wants to prevent her from linking up. And the whole idea, her mission is to get this something called a talisman or an amulet, a magical object that's infused with the ability to keep her safe In New Orleans, since he's from New Orleans, people in New Orleans, they may be familiar with a gree. In Africa or certain other spiritual societies, they may be familiar with I don't call them fetches, but certain objects that have been
Mhm.
infused specifically for you, for your protection, for your defense, for your wealth, for your health, etc. Um, for 99% of the people, that be child's play or kiddyish, but there are certain elements where there are certain objects that it will help enhance what you're doing. So that's what part of this story too. My grandmother says you're powerless without your tools. And the tools being significant of once again, a talisman or an amulet that's been
Mhm.
infused specifically with divine forces to keep her safe from harm.
It's also very contemporary. You talk about contemporary issues. I think, the COVID, the government, um, is very, very interesting how you incorporate the Bible, the government, going back to, Enoch, um, is impacted. That's the only word I could think of, is impacted with a wealth of information. Now, one of the books, it seemed like it was going to be like a love story. The I don't know, the Paradise. She was at a convention and she meets um, someone.
Yeah, yeah, someone that wasn't in her best interest. Yeah, someone that wasn't in her best interest. Paradise, essentially, for a background story on her, she was a very lonely child, very appealing to the eye, but she really didn't have any friends. She didn't have any friends as a result of her grandmother's reputation, being from New Orleans, and most people say you stay away from that. And also,
Mhm.
she was being groomed or being trained and developed to take on a mission that was going to be almost like a modern day Harriet Tubman or a Moses, so to speak. So she was being groomed for that in a spiritual fashion. So therefore, having social interaction with other people of her peer group wasn't something that she really had a luxury to have. And as a result of that, she finds herself getting caught up with an individual who is really her nemesis, and that's
Mhm.
Mr. King Cake, and that's specifically named after a New Orleans street, after Fat Tuesday.
Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
That sounded like that was going to be interesting. Encounter. Um, yeah, I have to finish reading that or listening to that. That's kind of where I stopped at. And the next book
Oh, the third book. I mean, we were in the fourth one, right?
is the fourth. This is the fourth one.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's called Dream Wars and Age Reversal. In this
Mhm.
particular book, because Paradise's mother had already passed away, she's been dead in the first book. She was able to use the science of her grandmother, our ancient foreparents, using particular amulets to help resurrect her mother from the dead. And essentially, in the age reversal, her father, let me backtrack. Her father, his name is Alonzo, and in the story, he was cursed essentially for leaving the family and really leaving Paradise and her mother, Nina, in a particular situation. And as a result of that, his particular what the grandma said root work or curse was to not establish roots. So every 15 days he had to go from town to town, and it only would stop if he came back to see his daughter, which he didn't do.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the age reversal part came in where at the end of that book, spoiler alert, is where paradise is used as a science of the ancient Hindis or the pranas. I was something I got from the Rick Vedas where they had to put these two brothers and they knew a science to reverse age. And so I took a story from one of my Hare Krishna friends and from a Rick Veda where they talked about the two brothers who used a particular science, a genetic using genes to reverse age. So that's where the age reversal came in.
Wow. Now the backdrop is New Orleans. Was that a conscious decision because New Orleans is known
Yeah, it's
for?
known for Marie Laveau, et cetera. It was that's
Yeah,
was a conscious decision.
yeah. So that it was a conscious decision to New Orleans.
Oh, most definitely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
I could have, I could
then,
have, I could have did maybe St. Helena in South Carolina, with the Geechees,
mhm.
Geechee Gullah.
Yeah, yeah.
I could
Uh-huh.
have there as well too.
Yeah. You know, I just had a thought when I was growing up. We had a neighbor across the street. We called him Doc. And I think Doc, he was from Louisiana. I think they were from Lake Charles,
Okay,
Louisiana. But Doc had a little, I would say a garage, I guess, but he would take appointments and people would go
come see him.
have an appointment with Doc and he would do it had to be black magic.
Not
He would
necessarily. It
have,
could have been. What he just did. He just did only dark work. He didn't do any. Well, now,
I
why
don't
are you
know.
defining as What did it work?
Well, it had to work because he consists. I was little. I was maybe 10. You know how you hear your parents talk? I don't know why. When you were talking about the spiritual side, I thought about Doc.
Okay,
And but I don't know if it worked or not, but he had consistent people, coming in, going back, back into his area where he did his
his work.
magic. I can't
Mhm.
say if it was good or bad, but you know, I think that's how we survived, especially during slavery. You may know better than me, but it has to be some type of spiritual God. I don't know, but I know that he had consistent paying clients, so it had to work.
Obviously, it had to work.
Yeah,
I
it
guess.
had to
I guess.
work. And you
I
hear
guess.
your peers saying, "Oh, Doc back there doing this and that." It's like, and then when you talked about the grandmother, I just thought about Doc.
That's interesting. And the grandmother's attitude, like she, um, other people's feelings in this particular case didn't bother her at all. So she
Hmm.
didn't have an issue with that. And with regards to Doc, obviously whatever he was doing, it was working because he said he had steady
That's right.
clients, and it was only
Yeah.
it was only bad when it didn't work, when people
Yeah.
wanted their money
Yeah.
back.
Yeah. I never heard anything like any kind of problems or controversy in terms of it not working. I just, I mean, as a people, we are connected to God. I truly believe that we are God's people. And I think in order to survive, we had to come up with different methodologies, you know, and who can say that it's right or it's wrong? Is it
Well,
black
no,
magic? Is
I
it
mean,
voodoo? It's like we had to survive, especially during slavery.
yeah, there's a couple points, if you don't mind, I'd like to add on to what you're saying.
Hmm.
One is you got to remember, um, for the past 500 and so years, we've been programmed, not a lot longer, but we've essentially been programmed by people that have demonstrated that they are our enemies. People might not like to hear that. So we think in a particular manner that may not be in the best interest for us as an individual or as a collective. So that's number one. Also, we have to keep in mind to break the shackles, so to speak, is that we have existed long before slavery in the Americas or in the Caribbean. But right now, we're locked into a particular mindset or paradigm where we remain stuck in that particular area, and we remain with the ideology of the people that put it there. Since you mentioned about slavery, many of your audience members should know about Frederick Douglass. And one of his autobiographies that are in the autobiography that I read, something that really stood out with me when he was being abused by the whip cracker, whatever you call it, the white cracker, the whipper man, when he was beating him, was breaking other individuals, other four parents or four people. He saw a lady in the woods, and the lady said, "Here, take this herb, put it in your pocket, and this man won't defeat you." So when the whip cracker come to fight Frederick Douglass in the barn, what happened? Frederick Douglass, it could have been psychological. It could have been the nature of the herb or a combination of both. But he ended up whipping the person that whipped him, and he didn't have any more problems coming out of that. And that the slave cracker. Now, that doesn't mean the slave cracker wasn't more abusive to the other slaves, but when it came to Frederick Douglass, he was not being abused by him or anyone else after that. Not too much longer after that, he got with the abolitionists. But that stood out to me that he saw a woman in the woods and she gave him a particular herb. He used that herb to give him either psychological strength or supernatural strength.
Yeah, yeah. That's real. And I don't think we could have survived 400 years of being in this, in the Americas without God and supernatural powers and supernatural healings. I just think it's, impossible to even fathom being able to survive just without, you want to call it spiritual, God's wisdom, God's grace, whatever it took to survive.
Mm-hmm.
That whatever it took, you can't. I don't know, when I hear your, of course I can't stop listening to the website, your interview with, I don't know if he was a bishop.
Oh, Dr. Hazel.
Yeah, and when I hear that, it's like it broadens your perspective on religion and spirituality and evil and a good, and it's is something that, like you said, we have to be open-minded, and we have to take, I think we have been limited in thinking, good and evil. But I'm gonna tell you something. The last time we talked, right? Your is he a pastor? I know he's passed on. Is he a
Yeah.
bishop? Okay, so he said when you want to reach an angel, it's threes, 3, 6, 3, 6, 9,
9 and 12.
12. Yeah. So I don't know if we talked about this last time. I'm not gonna be long. We're gonna talk about your book, but I just
No,
have
it's
to
fine.
give a testimony.
No,
So
you're doing an interview. You're doing an interview, so I'm following your path.
no, but every night I usually wake up at 3 o'clock. And
Okay.
what do I do? What do I do? I pick up the cell phone and social media, this and that. But what I started doing was praying and meditating. And one night, it was the next day or the next couple of days, I had a court decision.
Okay.
So I woke up and it was 333. I prayed, I prayed, I prayed, I prayed, I prayed, I prayed. And so the next day, there was a motion in court. And I was prepared to, I'm not a lawyer now, but I was prepared to ask for a continuance. So I had already wrote out the continuance, and I need this, I need that, because I moved and this and that. So I had everything ready for it. All I had to do is email it to the judge and all that. So, but first I looked at the order and everything was denied. It was denied, denied, denied. They had filed a motion against me and it was denied. And I'm just telling people, pray on those threes. Listen to your website. It talks about the archangels, Gabriel. Listen to that and do what he says. Especially, he talked about a legal situation, marriage, your kids. So that's my testimony.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
just want to say it worked. And that's what I do when I wake up at 3. I pray, I meditate, and I just say, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, till I go back to sleep. I don't pick up the cell phone anymore. But I don't know if that's spiritual, but I know it works. And that's why I'm saying we have to do what we have to do to survive this world. It's
Without
not
question.
easy. It's not easy, but we have to do what we have to do. And I feel like long as I'm blessing God, and this the same thing the guy said, your pastor said, you give God the glory. As long as you give God the glory, everything else is okay.
Exactly.
So let's
Everything
go
falls
back
in
to
place.
you.
Nah, thank you for that. Thank you for that testimony. Thank you
Let's
for
go.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When I first listened to that, we talked the first time, I said, oh my God. I think I told you, I said, this is really good stuff. I gotta listen to it again. I listen to things over and over and
Okay.
over. Like your books, I'll listen to them every morning when I'm, getting dressed. And it's the repetition. That's what makes it transforms me. It transforms me. It gives me that strength and the edge I need to be strong. But
Oh,
anyway, let's
definitely.
go back.
No, no, thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. They need to go to your website and listen to everything. And when you talk about the angels, the different angels in the east and the west, and for different manifestations, the things you need, it's real. It's
It is.
real. It is real. I don't know if you call it spiritual or religious. It doesn't matter. We got to pull every tool out the toolbox right about now, because they are killing us. I'm serious. They're killing us. They're killing us. They're beating us. So everything we got to do, just like going to the woods and getting those herbs or whatever we need to do, let's do it. Let's
Yeah, I
do it.
agree. Um, the very first start would be to have an altar, an altar, an altar in your home. You could put it any
Hmm.
place that you know no one's going to mess with it. The only place that you don't put an altar would be in your bathroom.
Okay.
Um, yeah, just because that's a place where you move your bowels and do other hygienic things. Um,
Right.
but
Right.
but depending on your household, everyone has different situations, so you might not be able to do it because of the people that you live around. But it's always great, like you mentioned about the cell phone, the smartphone you were taught to. Essentially, an altar is a beginning space, a beginning place. In just about every religion of the world, there's an altar. And the altar is just a symbolic place where an individual or individuals go to meet their creator, whatever name that they subscribe to the creator. So it's essentially a cell phone, or at least a cell phone booth. Well, that's back in the day, cell phone booths, but a smartphone. That's the beginning steps of your place of communing with the whatever you call the deity.
So with your altar, what should like you said, different religions. When you walk into a Chinese restaurant, you see an altar.
Correct.
I used to do business with people from Pakistan and the Middle East, buying clothes, selling clothes. They always would have an altar. What would you suggest the altar should consist of for us? Just give us some examples, and then we're going to go back to the book. So,
No, that's fine. Like I
yeah,
said, it's your interview. Essentially, the
yeah.
ultimate, once again, is a communication device. So, Black Americans, or so-called Negroes or colors, depending on what, every 25, 30 years we get a different name. But melanated, so-called Black folks, just speaking regular to regular people, have
Mhm.
been told to stay away from that. But even in the
Yeah.
Christian Bible, there's an incense of altar there's a stone altar, not saying sacrificing of blood rituals. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
that, but something simple as sweet smelling incense on the altar. You may have a
Mm-hmm.
candle on the altar. If you had a grandmother or an uncle, a brother or sister who was in the spirit world that you know that they really loved you, you'll put that object on there. You might walk and see a stone on the ground, and just whatever reason it appeals to you, you
Mm-hmm.
dedicate it to God and you put it in your altar.
Yeah.
And you're not praying to the altar. It's like you don't pray to your phone when you call your friend or you call your boss or your coworker,
Okay, got
but
you.
it's an instrument, it's a tool, it's a relationship between you and the spirit realm. But that's something
Yeah.
that's outside of the confines of dogmatic religion.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, you may not get to ask to come back. You start talking that in circles that are not, number one, don't want to hear it. Number two, you make them feel uncomfortable. And number three,
Yeah.
I don't want to change. But for those that have like minds, then this is the number one place you start. This is where you start making the reconnection. So
Yeah.
it's not like your whoever loved you or loves you that's in the spirit world stop loving you. The
Yeah.
difference is that we've dropped the ball. We have released the connection. We severed the tie. It's like boiling water, different phases of water. In its liquid state, it moves, it
Yeah.
weighs. When it's solid, it's ice. And then when you boil,
Yeah.
it turns to steam. It's still
Yeah.
water, but it's in a different
Right.
phase.
Right.
So
Right.
once we leave
Right.
this house that here, doesn't mean that that person that loved you ceases to exist. It's just that their mode of communication with you is going to be differently. So if they really want to get your attention, there may be something as serious as an object falling off the wall or something more subtle where their hairs on the back of your neck stand up or you get goosebumps and you know you're the only one in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you'll know the difference between something that's evil, just like you go to
Yeah.
a place like this place don't feel right. So
Yeah.
you already have
Yeah.
that inherent thing that God, the God goddess energy in you, the divine masculine and
Mm-hmm.
feminine, that tells you. A lot of times we ignore it, but
Yeah.
the alarm does go off to say this don't sound right, or this don't feel right.
You know, something else I did after I listened to our first to your conversation with the pastor, and after our first interview is I had a I have it on the wall. I had an old picture of my mother. It's a black and white, but during the holidays, Walgreens has all these specials, so I blew it up to 11 by 14, and it's right around here. Is on the other wall, so I have a picture of her, and she collected spoons, and so she has spoons from all different states wherever she traveled. I have that, and then what I did also is I put my dad's guitar. It's right there, you know, right there with her. And then I'm gonna put more pictures of them. And I really got that from you, when I listened to that very first video, and you said they're not, you can't, they're here, and the only reason why they don't come is because we don't think about them. We don't go to the grave sites, you know. But my thing is, I have their pictures, and I have my mom's spoons and my dad's guitar. So that's how I remember them. And I remember the first day I went and got the poster, and my dog, he just like barking. I said, that's my mother. Why are you barking at my mother? And he might have saw the spirit, you know.
Without question.
But I just think what you're doing is so important, and it's different than the old fashioned, Christianity. Uh, it's so many, like I said, rules and regulations where on the not the on the video, not the video, but when you were talking to the pastor, one thing he said is like, we're the only culture that don't
honor our
recognize the
ancestors.
dead or celebrate the dead. We don't have a culture. We don't, what do we know? We do, like you said, our enemy has taught us, educated us and, kind of dictated, it goes back to what the ghost and, the KKK dressing up like ghosts and things like that. It had that has us afraid of being around spirits and things like that. So I just want to say that this is what I got from you, so far, and I just appreciate that. I didn't mean to go there, but I think it's important, to acknowledge what you do,
I
and
thank you for that.
sometimes you don't know how you're making an impact. So you're going to go back to the next book. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Your emotions and sentiment, I definitely feel and recognize, and you don't need anyone. Now you're on a journey on the path by your father's guitar, your mother's picture being up, even your dog, your family member, the canine friend, even acknowledge the fact that the room and the atmosphere has changed. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
my point of saying this and sharing this is when you're at the masjid or you're at the temple or you're at church. Obviously, this is not the setting or the conversation for that.
Right.
These type of
Right.
conversations are only meant for people that are vibrating at the same level as you, if not
Yeah.
higher. So going with the book with Paradise, when her there was two rituals. A ritual essentially a ceremony. So a ritual being every time you go outside to open up a door, that's a ritual. Every time you brush your teeth, that's a ritual. So it's a ceremony of practice, a continuation of a habit that you do. And this particular spiritual habit or practice that Paradise had, there was two. One in the book in the beginning when her back was against the wall, and you mentioned about the bad guy that she messed with at the hotel. She
Mm.
was forced to in a pretty much like a shotgun wedding. So she remember she had made a promise to her mother that she would never use magic or spiritual work to help get out of her situation. But her back was against the wall, and physical fighting wasn't going to do it for her in this particular instance. So she went to a ritual called a balloon ritual, something that anyone can do
Mm.
that's open minded. It's not for everybody. It's not for you to share with your coworkers, your cousins, or your brother in law who's in the bar. These are not the people that this information is to be shared with. Essentially, she wrote a little a note on a piece of paper and folded up, said to God and to her grandmother, "Don't let this man kill me. Get me out of
Mm.
this situation." And she essentially went to the bar at the wedding, had the man with the helium balloon, put it inside the balloon, and she tied a knot and released the helium balloon into the air and went on about her way. And she was protected and safe. That was one of the first rituals in the book that was done. Something
Mm.
very easy. You can go to the dollar store and have a
Yeah.
little message. The people at the counter don't need to know what you're doing. You just
Mm.
slide this little piece of paper in there and you release it. Once
Yeah.
again, it's not
Yeah.
this information not to be shared with everybody, even though it's a public forum. People that could receive this is going to receive it. The people
Right.
that can't, they're going to reject it or turn it off.
Mm.
And the other ritual that I want to share that was in it that's really really ancient that I actually like and the Paradise liked as well was called the egg ritual. The ancient Egyptians and even the Dogon, I don't say the Dogon so much, but well, the Dogons came from Egypt and then they went to Mali. But the ancient Egyptians, they would get fresh alligator eggs and they would use a piece of charcoal and they were etched on that um, something that they liked or they wanted that they call what we call spirits. They call netters or nature, so the neteru. But
Mm-hmm.
they would write something to the supreme creator of all life and say whatever they're looking for, and they would write it on there, and they would go to a large body of water where it ebbs and flows 2 times in 24 hours. They would toss that egg into the water, and then there's something in Christianity that cast your burdens or bread upon the water and to come back to you. So essentially, that's an old science that they did.
Mm.
It's something that one of the rituals that Paradise did in the book. That was one of her favorite rituals was the egg
Wow.
ritual. So she didn't use an alligator egg. Obviously, she used a fresh duck egg. But
Yeah.
essentially, that's
Wow.
really it's something that's called simple things confound the mighty. Even in Christianity, talk about that simple thing.
Yeah.
And
Wow. Wow.
we're definitely going to need that because we're this spiritual work. That's the only way that we're going to keep ourselves safe because
Yeah.
there's not enough. We don't have enough guns, enough
No.
bombs and weapons to do that. But we do have spirituality. It's in our
Yeah.
DNA.
It is.
So once we
Yeah.
start returning back to that, because you got to look. You think about even most recently in Ohio with the chloride, what they blew up over farmland. So what's going to happen is
Hmm.
one of the largest carcinogens that's going to affect food.
Yeah.
So things of that nature, it's not like we're going to be out there with and pick up trucks and be able to defend that, but there has to be some way that we balance out this cosmic evil.
Yes. Yeah. 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 So we're winding down to almost an hour. Did we go? And now the fifth book, the last book you're currently working on?
Yeah, the Order of the Boneless. It should be out
Yeah.
in a few months from this conversation.
It
Yeah, I don't
should
want to
be
go
out
into
when?
in a few months from this conversation here.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yes, I
Where
don't want to go
can
into
they, go ahead.
no, I said I didn't want to go into the details of that book yet until it comes out.
Okay. Okay. Where can they find the series?
Shema'yahBey.com, ShemayahYah, B is in bank, E is in echo, Y is in Yankee.com,
Okay.
Shema'yahBey.com.
And you can purchase all the books. They're audio and they're hardcover.
Right now they're just softback right now, just paperback.
Okay. Okay. But I got an audio that was just like a
Yeah, you got an
preview.
audiobook. Yeah, you got an audiobook too. Yeah, you got the audiobook.
Yeah.
But they're
But can
tangible. They're
people
tangible
buy?
as stick.
Okay. They can buy audio or hardcovers or just hardcovers.
They're soft covers. Yeah, but we're saying, I guess, essentially saying the same thing. Paperback books
Soft
and
cover.
audiobook. Yeah. Hmm.
Oh, okay. You can buy both. Because, sometimes when you have a long commute, it's nice to be able to listen, to books. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
good.
and the narrator Michelle Ariana Simmons, she did a really good job with the story
Yeah, she did.
narrating.
Yeah, you did good too. You did
No,
good
I
too.
appreciate that.
There's a lot of names. It's like, man, I need to see these names in print because they're, long names and very complex names. Is there anything you would like to share that, I did not ask, or anything you'd like to share with the audience at this point?
One thing I would like to share is for everyone to be kind to themselves and to be kind to the loved ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to have a little bit more kindness for yourself.
Yeah. Grace, I think it's called maybe a little grace, huh?
Oh, well, yeah, a lot of grace. I'm having a little more,
Yeah, a
have a lot
little
more grace.
grace. Yeah, a little grace. Um, are your books on Amazon? Because I went on Amazon. I think I
Yeah,
saw
they're on
one of them.
Amazon. It's easier just to go to my website and then click the link and it'll take
Okay,
you right to Amazon.
okay, okay. And all four of them will be on there?
They are, yes, they are.
Okay. How many pages approximately are the books?
They vary from 250 to 275.
Okay.
I think the third one may be the longest, like 300, maybe 350. But
Before we,
sure.
no, I wanted to, I should have asked this at the beginning, but I was so into your encounter with the UFO. Talk a little bit before we go about eschatology, the science. Is
Esoteric
that
or
es-
eschatology? Well, it's when
Yeah,
we talk about esotericism, like eso means the hidden. Exo means things that you could touch, tangible things.
but which one are you?
I was
Because in
talking
your
about the
bio,
eso. Yeah, the eso,
okay,
esoteric,
talk about
eso.
that one.
Just basically, we've been talking about it through the whole conversation. The
Yeah,
unseen world, yeah, the not so common. So it means the occult means hidden. This means when they hear word occult, they just automatically think something evil or terrible, but it just means hidden knowledge.
okay.
Hmm.
And so that's the science of hidden knowledge,
Yeah,
hidden
that's what the
knowledge.
cult means. Yeah, it's a cult. It's shouted. Everything's not for everybody. It's like you don't give a 5-year-old a loaded gun.
Right, right. So that's esoteric. Is that,
Eso,
did I pronounce
esoteric, eso, eso,
esoteric?
yeah, esoteric.
Okay. Because one of the preacher I listened to, he said, I'm going to mess with your eschatology. We're going to talk about eschatology. So I was just trying to relate that to what you were doing to what he was doing, and it's
Oh,
kind of
okay.
on the same I guess the same philosophy.
Yeah, well,
Um,
every religion has this particular dogma format of doing things, and what we're talking about steps outside of that particular realm, unless you have a more advanced. But most likely, I'm pretty sure there are a few ministers that are aware of the knowledge, but that's not something that you teach to your members. You want to keep your tithe money coming in, your offering money coming in.
he reminds me a lot of the pastor that's on your website. Is he doesn't you know pastor is like the next best things to God. He wants you to have that your own power to go to God on your own behalf and not depend on anybody. And your pastor passed, and so is the pastor I listened to, Stephen Darby. He
Okay.
passed, so they're giving us tools to be able to survive with them or without them, and I
Correct,
think
without
that's a
question.
blessing.
So when you
That's
have
a
the tool,
blessing.
when you have the tool, you got to use it, and you got to use
Yes.
the right tool for the right situation. So if you need
Yeah.
a nail hammered into the wall, you're not going to use a screwdriver, or you're going to be there a long time. You use the appropriate tool for the appropriate situation.
Right. Right. And do you want to give your website also?
Sure,
I've
it's
been
it's
talking about it.
that's fine. Yeah, it's shema'yahbey.com. SHEMAYAHBEY.com. Shema'yahbey.com.
All right. Well, Shema'yah Bey, I want to give you the last word, whatever you want to say. And, Super Bowl Sunday. A lot of people are, getting ready for that Super Bowl party. So we're not going to hold you too much longer. But I appreciate you coming back. And, again, I appreciate what you're doing in terms of the spirituality, the religion, just connecting all the pieces together for us as people of color. Um, I think we're shaped by God, and this is just another aspect of God that is within us. And I think there's no limitation. So I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm going to support you whenever you want to come back. When you have that next book, let me know so you can come back and we'll talk about the next book. In the meantime, I'm gonna be praying on those 3, 6, 12s, the east, the west, looking for Gabriel and all the different angels. And I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you for making the opportunity, providing the platform. And I also want to thank Sky for making the introduction between you and I.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. And we'll enjoy your Sunday. And
You as
this is
well.
Jamila J. And it's been a minute, but we'll be back soon. We'll be back soon with some more great guests, some more great topics, and just look out for us. And then, like I said, share, like. We talk about religion, politics, everything. And I just want to thank God for this day. Thank God for this author. Bless his family, bless his writing, bless everything he does. And we will see you next time. And we always gonna keep saying peace. You gotta say peace,
Peace.
Shema'yah. Peace.
Peace.
All right. Thank you
Thank you.
guys.
I appreciate
All
you.
right. All right. See you next time.